Hey everyone, welcome to the first devlog for my brand new game created in Godot 4.0, Robbit, a cute puzzle game about a bunny who really likes to steal things. Robbit is a tile-based box pusher puzzle with differently behaving boxes, except the boxes, in this case, are vegetables. I've been working on this project for about 2 months now, and it's coming along nicely. Nice enough, in fact, to show it off to the world. Let's get down to business. I want to begin with the design goals and inspiration for this project. My primary goal at beginning this game was to make something small and manageable. It's a lot harder to scope creep something that's as simple and contained as a nice little puzzler. Now, how did I come up with the name and concept? Well, it started with something quite silly. For some reason, I felt strangely compelled to make a game involving fruits and vegetables. I'm sure it's happened to all of us at some point, right? As I began brainstorming, a carrot being pulled out of the ground was the most common thought that came to me. I thought, what if instead of the vegetables being picked, they were being nicked? And of course, when a carrot's being stolen, no other animal comes to mind than a rabbit. Right as that hit me, so did the name of the game, Robbit, or Rob-it, Rabbit, Rob-it. I know, it's incredibly cheesy, but it's also really fun, and I'm probably not going to change it. Continuing with the art side of things, I wanted the game first and foremost to look like it came straight out of a toy box. Something simple and cutesy like Stardew Valley of course came to mind, especially when the topic centers around vegetables. I also looked at non-pixel art games though, such as Cosmic Express, an adorable space train puzzler. The first 2 pieces I designed in Asprite, the single best pixel art program out there and one that I use for all of my projects, were the most important. The bunny and the carrot, a duo as classic as you can get. From there, it's only expanded. I'm doing what I'm used to for my game design flow and drawing whatever pops into my mind, whether it be an entire collection of baskets or trees and rocks to surround the level with. And of course, I just had to make a mock-up level, which turned out just as I'd envisioned it. Now let's get into how I'm actually making the game work. First time in Godot 4.0, and so far, everything is fairly similar to 3.5. I used a system for player movement that I'm already fairly familiar with. The character, when given an input, selects a target position 16 pixels in that direction, and moves using the move towards function, which remains unchanged. I used 2 separate raycasts to check for terrain and pushable objects. The character's animations I imported as a sprite sheet, which, as I learned from a past experience, I can export directly from a .asprite file, and set up an animation player node with each animation loaded in. From there I used the same process as my honor for higher animations. An animation tree with blend space 2D nodes within. Each blend space I access through this function when I change direction, making sure all of the animations are constantly following. The new thing that I learned this go around was that the transitions between them have conditions I can set directly on the node, something that I used to very easily connect them to the character's script. That's about all for the bunny besides pushing, and to talk about that, we need to move on to the vegetables. First off, the simplest one, the tomato. It rolls 1 square at a time, your typical box in a box puzzle game. The main thing that I needed to do in creating this was get the pushing system down, so that was what I tackled. If the character's O raycast overlaps with an obstacle, it will attempt to call a push function on the target. Push receives 2 variables, speed and direction, both given by the player. With the tomato, speed is set to the character's speed, and based on the direction given, the tomato will update its own target position and collider ray. It kind of behaves like a bit of a mini player that can't receive input. The most complicated looking part about it is this code down here, the orientation and animation control. To keep it as short as possible, I have to account for each push direction no matter what side of the tomato is face up and animate accordingly. And since I've just recently finished these animations, I can show them off. Here's the rabbit pushing the tomato in a circle. Second, one that was surprisingly easy, the rolling one. I haven't picked yet what I want this to be, but I have a few choices. Onion, blueberry, apple, the list goes on. This does mean that I don't have an animation to show off yet, so you're stuck looking at a green Godot icon for now. Looking at the code, I think you can tell why this one was so easy. The push method has a lot less to account for since it only can perform one action, constantly rolling, and I have no animations to deal with right now. The only tricky part was making it stop, but I have a raycast node that waits to hit the wall, then stops it. Now, I have to give credit to my favorite feature of the raycast node, this force raycast update function. It allows me to instantly push through an update to the raycast so I never run into any issues with, say, the veggie clipping into a wall. Finally, the one that I rightfully expected to be the most complicated, the carrot. This vegetable moves just like the player from that old game Bloxorz, with a bit of the rolling veggie mixed in. It flips end to end, but when pushed sideways while toppled, it'll roll till it stops. This is as much of an implementation nightmare as it sounds, and there's a reason this one is sitting at 371 lines of code currently. I'll start at the top and run through the important parts. First, the push function. Right off the bat, you'll notice it's a lot bigger. I started off by just figuring out basic orientation logic, only flipping between upright and the two fallen directions. This was fairly easy to do, and although you see move speed being updated here, the only thing I actually ended up using it for was rolling. Since I was tracking what state it was in, I added this chunk of code that updates the position of call 1 and call 2. These are just the two square colliders that I used for the carrot, and they allow me to keep a visual of how the carrot was oriented long before I got the animation in. There's also this extra ray fall, that makes sure the player doesn't try to push the carrot somewhere it should be, like, again, inside a wall. That's about as basic as it gets. When the animation got involved, I had to do a lot of fiddling with sprite positions simply because of how I created it in ASprite. Sometimes I have to flip the position across the screen completely. But by timing it just right, you can't tell the difference. And this is the product of my hard labor. You might have noticed the white outline around both the tomato and the carrot, and this was something new for me as well. I got some code for a shader from this very helpful video by Weekend and connected it to an area 2D. When the player walks by, the veggie gets outlined. Simple as that. Alright, you've now got the basic idea for how the veggies are pushed around. But what if you mess up and you want to go back? Well, not to worry. Not only have I implemented a reset turn button, which is basically required for any puzzle game, I've also got a full-on undo system that allows the player to skip back a turn at a time at the press of a button. That button currently being Z. This is a bit too complicated to go in depth on in this video, but I'll describe it in quote-unquote simple terms. Each turn is called at the end of the player's one-tile movement. My global variable script pulls the position of each vegetable and the player and puts them in an array called saved positions. This array is then inserted into another one, now stay with me here, called turns. I have a variable called current turn that keeps track of which turn the player is on. So when I undo, what it's doing is accessing the turns array at the position current turn and applying all of these positions to the vegetables and the player. I know that's a lot, but I'll be putting out a tutorial on how I created this system and how you can implement it in your own games, so keep an eye out for that. Now, of course, for a puzzle to actually be a puzzle, there needs to be a way to complete it. Our theft-obsessed rabbit isn't a solo act. He's got friends, and they need these vegetables for research purposes. So in every level, there will be a collection of baskets. Your goal is to fit the vegetables in the baskets, and when all of them have been liberated, the level is complete. I actually have the system almost fully functional and animated at this point, so let me walk you through it. Each level runs off the exact same script, saving me a lot of time coding. The level checks each basket to see if a vegetable is located at the same position. If it returns true, that veggie is obtained. If all of them are obtained, the level is beaten, and the level finish function runs. I'll run you through the code as it happens on the side here so you can see what's going on. First, the sweep in animation runs, followed by the drop down. This is the in-between levels menu, run by a while loop. When the player inputs either left or right, it cycles between each of the buttons. Go to the main menu, which isn't done yet, redo the level, or move on. When the player presses enter, this while loop is exited by turning the waiting condition to false. Depending on what the player selected, a sequence of actions is completed after the menu pulls away. The reason I'm able to run this on any level from a single script is because I have two global variables that, similar to the undo system, keep track of where I am in the level hierarchy. It stores an array of levels and a variable that points to the current one and navigates accordingly. So this is what I've got so far. Going into the future, I've got a lot on my plate, but for the first time, I think it all feels manageable. Puzzle design is going to be a big component moving forward, so I'll be recruiting my friends from around college as impromptu playtesters as I gradually get better at making levels. I want to design more characters for the game, such as this raccoon, who is quite displeased that everyone thinks he's a thief like you, and the necessary cast of angry human characters who want nothing more than to get you off their lawns. And I want to come up with more unique mechanics and settings for the game, such as seasonal or themed levels with their own unique tiles, or different kinds of obstacles that have to be avoided to make your escape. Like I said, lots of things, but I'm making sure this time around to keep these features manageable. Make sure you subscribe and join my Discord, and consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron, which is brand new, all of which are located conveniently down in the description. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next one.